How about was everyone that the ice cream machine wasn't working? Oh no, what? We were all happy to be players. Oh, you're not a player person?
I forgot there was ice cream this time.
You forgot there was ice cream. I didn't think I'd ever hear that spoken.
We didn't have to roll up. Mountain Dew's a decent concept. That's the sound of I don't agree with.
Yes, it was. That was like you and I are very different humans. Like that was what that was. All right. I am so excited to bring Anthony. He's going to talk about what is your value proposition. And he's told me there's some cool interactive workshopping stuff he's got going on. So I think this will be the perfect after lunch talk. Get everybody moving and shaking. So Anthony, thank you.
So I'll keep the intro brief because I'll get into some of that as we go along. But I will say, I'm Anthony. You might ask, well, have we seen you before at CGDC? It's like, no, you haven't. It's like, okay, well, what titles have you worked on or put out? And it's like, no, I haven't. Yes, the thing is, we've got a game in progress, and it says, well, then why are you up here? What do you have to offer necessarily? And I'm not actually going to be speaking from my game production experience. I'm going to be speaking from 8 years of real estate experience running my own business in that regard. And so that very much hits on something that we all want to know about, which is marketing, but marketing is a very, very broad topic. I can't cover it all. But what I do want is to cover some of the thought process that goes into marketing. So, let's see if this works. Oh, okay, here we go. Let's say I want you to buy my goose. And I'm going to show you this picture. Who wants to buy my goose? Okay, a few people. Okay, well, that's the thing. See, we have questions, we'll answer those. But, or we could, if I was really selling a goose. But I was going to say, just based on that, this was my marketing scheme for this goose, unless you're a lover of foul things, you may not want to buy this goose. Now, what if in fact this wasn't any goose? This was the goose from the Jack and the Beanstalk tale, or at least maybe a cousin. And, okay, yeah. But if I didn't show you that picture up front and that was my goose, I'm an idiot. You know? I'm not hitting the right thing. I'm not displaying the real, because if I had that goose, I would need to sell them. But, just for the sake of analogy, we'll keep it going. So, that kind of hits on the gist of what we're kind of getting to. Okay, so 8 years ago, my wife and I changed professions. I had been a pastor before all that, youth pastor and whatnot, music, and then got injured. Well, actually, no. I went for some whatever reasons. I ended up at Target distribution, kind of hiding from some life issues that happened, trauma to the family, and I was just hiding there. And I was working in the warehouse and doing things, and then I got an injury. And the injury wasn't enough to debilitate me, but it made me not be able to work there anymore. And it left me in a situation kind of like now still. I'll have these back pain problems here and there. It's not enough to mess up my life, but it's enough to remind me it's there. And it's one of those things where I kind of maybe can relate to Paul. Not that his affliction was physical, but in this case, it's this thing that just shows up every once in a while. I had to change careers. And I said, okay, God, what do you want us to do? And my wife was praying as well. What are we going to do? And we were open. We always just wanted to serve, whatever he would have us do. And actually, when I left a youth pastor job, at one point, the pastor's fellowship, these are all senior pastors, like, what are you going to do next? Why don't you show me my church? What church do you go to? I'm not going to go to a church unless God guides me to a church. The whole reason we came here in the first place was that God put on both of our hearts we needed to come up to this place. And so we did, and we worked there for that time, and when that season was over, we'll just say, what's the next season, God? Because in our hearts, for us, it was a calling, not a career. So it was a portion of our life. So we said, what's the next portion? And we got
through many avenues, but one of them was a handyman with a drug problem that was doing work for us convinced us that, in our home, and we were trying to help him out, and he convinced us that we really ought to be in real estate. And that he says, that we've both got charisma, we've got a lot of the things, and we're trustworthy. People would just trust us, and that's necessary. The genuineness and other things that he pointed out, and we couldn't argue with it, and we both kind of felt right about it, but it was scary, because this is a whole new thing, and you're running your own business. And so, I don't know how much you guys pay attention to realtors, but if you try to stand out in real estate, there's a whole lot of people that want to look special. They want to seem special. And very few of them actually stand out, or do seem much different than the crowd. And this is very, very standard, And you might do a little tweak here, or maybe I got a picture with my dog in this one, or whatever, but it's all kind of the same old. And we thought, well, what are we going to do to kind of stand out? Because we don't have, earlier one of the talks was talking about, actually on the crowdfunding, that a lot of these companies that come to crowdfunding, they have a book of business already. They've got clients, customer base. They're pretty much just taking pre-orders. They've got the people that are going to buy their stuff almost no matter what it is. We don't have that starting out in real estate. In this case, there are those agents that have referrals only, and they can just get the business coming in. We weren't there. We didn't know where to start. So we said, what are we going to do to stand out? And we thought, what's unique about us? What is something unique that would get attention? And we thought, this is something we can't go anywhere without people coming along. To the grocery store, even if we don't have, it's great. For those of you who don't know, you'll find out in a minute, we have 12 children. And so, if we went to the grocery store with just 4 of them, people were like, oh, how do you do it? And then of course, the Gabby kid of ours will be like, one of them will be like, actually, we got 8 more at home, and all this. So it's like, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So, it's like, yeah, this is somebody in the grocery store, and I don't think they really care that, I have to teach the kids social graces, But anyway, so we thought, well, that gets attention. So why don't we go with that? So here we go. We're like, hey, it's almost like a mullet on a business card. In a sense. Like nice and clean cut on the front, and then a little more loose on the back, right? As far as like, oh, wait, here's the unique thing on the back side of the card. On the front side of the business card, we're just looking at the So we thought that would work. Well, that didn't work. It got attention, and we would have people come up to us all the time and be like, hey, you got another one of those business cards? I got to show so-and-so. People took our business cards, But it wasn't relatable. It didn't connect. It stood out, but it didn't connect. And so what we get is somebody went out, we went to show them a house, and they didn't want that particular one. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry to bring you out here, take you away from your family. I know you're going to be home. That was what it was. That's the reaction we got. Okay? And it's like, this is my job. I'm very happy to be here. People don't buy every house. This is part of my career. It's okay. You're helping me feed this family. Please, don't apologize. Okay? Right. So that didn't work out. And I thought, okay, what are we going to do? We thought about it some more. I went with my son, who's really into Mega Man and all those other things. And I was at GameStop with him, and I saw this Captain America backpack. And I was like, hey, I've got the iPad for business, this big iPad Pro, And I was like, okay. And I thought, it's cool, it fit right in it. So I carried it everywhere I went. It's, Captain America shield, And people would stop me all the time, like, oh, dude, that backpack's sweet, And it would start a conversation. And it hit me. I was like, okay, the family thing not related. This draws people in. It gets them talking not about this strange anomaly of a person I'm trying to understand, but instead something we can chat about. We've got in common. So I hired a comic artist, and we went with this. Now, at the time, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was a show that was really going on, Later, we've since kind of dropped the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Agent of Real part, and went just into a real thing is your real estate superheroes. Your real estate superheroes. And we saw some people that tried to do like a little bird Jimmy drawing. It still kind of looks too much like the rest of it, you know, the other cards. I mean, just with a little touch. This has actually worked out very, very, very well. We get a lot of people. Actually, we've gotten this artist quite a business from commissions and stuff because they're like, hey, who is this? So that connected, praise God. You know, there's a I don't know how true this is. I'm not stating this as truth. I'm just saying there is in the ancient conception, there's a belief or concept that ideas are not original, and you don't think of ideas. You don't come up with your own ideas. I'm not saying this is true. It's just interesting to think about. And it's what you do with the idea. You can process an idea, but that every idea you get comes to you from the outside, somewhere. And then kind of some stuff in the Bible that might support that kind of stuff, like the logic of earth, the logic of demons, the logic of God, you know, all these things. You know, there's things that may support that. I'm not saying it's true, but it's an interesting thought. And in this case, I know with my game, Alice Majesty, I can say for sure with this, I can say for sure it could have been just, hey, I have this great idea, but it sure felt like it was handed to me. And so, at least my own life experience kind of backs that up, you know? And so I think a lot of the key things in my life that have made some really impactful directions were ideas that I really think came from outside. So at least they could back it up a little bit in that way. But anyway, my iPad shut down. I have to get it back open. So, so in this case, like I said, this was something that did help us stand out from the crowd visually, but was also relatable, connectable. Everybody liked it and went there. So you may wonder, okay, how does this relate to a value proposition? That's not value. I didn't just present value, did I? No, that's just a gimmick almost, really. I mean, really. So the thing is, though, before you can present your value, you have to have somebody's attention. If you don't have their attention, it doesn't matter. My wife did freelance photography for a while, and she got some referrals and did well, but she realized something when she was studying photographers in the business, and it wasn't the most successful photographers aren't the best photographers. They're kind of mediocre, but they're good business people. And there are some really, really great photographers that are just kind of getting by. And so first you have to get people's attention. You have to know how to get them to pay attention to you. So there's a thing with realtors. Now we're getting to value. Okay? Some of you may have ever bought or sold a house. And some of you may have even been the people I'm about to mention. There's nothing wrong with this. But people say, hey, I hear what you're telling me that the contract rate is now, it's different per state, or I'm not sure how it goes in every state, but in Ohio, the way it goes is when I'm going to sell your house, help you list, sell your house, there's a percentage that I'm going to say this is the percentage of the sale price, and that's what the fee is. And I'm going to take half of that, and I'm going to, and now it varies per area, but in general, right where I am, I'm going to take half of that. And I'm going to offer it to the brokerage that brings a buyer. And that's their incentive to bring a buyer. And you pay for it, you're like, and I've never had this question actually, because it's just kind of the way it's done. But it's like, why is the seller paying for both people's realtors? Okay, but you know what? When you bought the house or you're buying your next house, you're benefiting from it. So it kind of, I think that's why people don't care as much, because it kind of goes out in the wash. But anyway, people will say, well, I want you to cut that commission. I want you to cut that rate. And there's a lot of people that will ask that. And a lot of agents do it. And the agents that do it, my wife and I, we don't do that. We haven't had to do that. We really don't even get asked much. Almost never. But that's, again, getting into, we've been working by referrals for some time. But anyway, we don't do that because I have value to offer. When you ask me to bring my rate down, I first will let you know what you're getting for that percentage. Help you see the value in that. And if you understand the value in that, you're going to pay for that. If you don't understand the value, and I don't have value to offer, my only option is, I better drop my rate before they give it to some other person. Because I'm no special, I'm not any more special than they are. I don't have anything anything extra you need to offer? So, that gets into value. That's how it ties into value proposition. When we're into this conversation with people, in our case, I don't want to get into all the details because I'm not going to bore you with real estate. This isn't a real estate, talk. But a couple things, for example, is you're getting 2 agents. I say, well, actually, you're having both of us work for you, and we're not charging you any extra. We're both professional. We could be working, a lot of husband and wife teams work with their own clients separate because they make more money. We got into this business to work together. We wanted to work together, and we feel like our diversity and skills gives you, the client, a better service because everybody has their strengths and weaknesses in the business. You'll see it all the time, but you're getting her strengths and my strengths. She's in the presentation. She's certified in staging. She does a lot of the value research. She'll get in there and not just take an automated value, but she's breaking down the comparables. And she's looking and she's saying, hey, you know what? You don't need granite countertops to sell for top dollar in this neighborhood because none of these other ones have it. In fact, there is one that had it and there's no price difference. Don't spend your money on it. You know what I mean? She'll give you the information you need to get the top dollar in, but everyone in this neighborhood has solid floors downstairs, and if they have carpet, it's only upstairs. If you're going to change the flooring out, don't go carpet, get something soft. She'll give you that information, and she stages, like I said, she sets that up, she has that presentation expertise. Don't ask me colors, don't ask me any of that stuff. I had people pick my outfits out and say, hey, wear this, you'll look sharp. I'm not that guy. So then, but I am a negotiator. I bring people together. I'm a unifier. And so when I'm talking to that other person, they get the sense, even if it's just another agent, that I'm not just looking out for the best interest of my client at their expense. I'm looking for that win-win situation. I'm looking for something that we all walk away from the closing table with a smile on our face and are happy that we had that transaction. Is it all possible? And most of the time it is possible, even if things go wrong. So that's my skill. That's my value. That's a lot of what I'm doing. And I'm on it with the paperwork. My contracts are filled out and I'm presenting offers for people. I can't tell you as a listing agent the number of paper contracts I get that are half filled out or filled out inaccurately, and mine looks spot on. It is detailed, it's complete. A lot of the stuff, when you need to fill in the other information, it's a hassle for the other agent to have to fill it in. All you need to do is click a button, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, make sure it's right good. That's all you have to do, and a lot of people are, I'll use the word, too lazy to do that. Or they just don't know. It might be ignorance. Nobody ever trained them to talk. That's very possible. So I don't want to assume the worst. Let's assume the best. But mine looks like no work. My contract, if you accept it, for that agent looks like, oh, this is good. This is no extra work for me. I like this guy. So I'm bringing those things to the table. That's the kind of things, the value that we bring, and there's so much more, and I don't want to get into it. This isn't a real estate thing. But the point is, that's when we get into value proposition, and that's why we don't need to cut our rate. And now we're actually, I didn't bring up the file there. I was going to do it. We're actually 5-year winners of the 5-star professional award. So both of us, you have to do it per agent. We're both winners of that, and we actually do work entirely by referrals at this point. We don't put billboards up and that kind of stuff. We just take care of people. I send them birthday cards, and their kids get $1 for every year they are old. Their kids get a birthday card. And if they get something for their anniversary, they've got a gift card to a restaurant I know they like. And a lot of times people forget too. They're like, oh, it's my favorite place. I'm like, I asked you. But I'm putting my money there into people that send business to. And it's great because it fits my Christian. I want to give. I want to give to people, and not the billboard company. Nothing wrong with the billboard company, but I'd rather give to people. And so it fits that, and it works out, and people remember us. Okay. So jumping right ahead, though, then, let's talk about another place where it's probably difficult to stand out. Diners. Everybody knows the diner. I may be dating myself with saying the old greasy spoon. Right? That was probably before my time, to be honest. But I've heard it used. If somebody's going to a diner, unless they're a local, regular, the diners rely a lot on regular. I got that. Actually, there was a diner down the street from us, and a lot of my older children worked there
as like cooks and waitresses and stuff, just kind of, you know, just kind of a thing. It's a donut shop, and we got donuts there, and they offer them jobs. It's like, great, they can walk to it, it's perfect. But it's somebody we know will look after them, we care about that. So that's the kind of stuff they get. But as far as people, let's say you're a truck driver, and you drive through and you've eaten at 50 different, you know, diners over time, right? Then they say, oh, what stands out about your diner? Oh, we have the best apple pie. Yeah, that's pretty good. So were the other 15 places out of the 50 that said they had the best apple pie. If you're eating in a diner, you're eating there because you just want that experience. You want that genre. You know what to expect. You know what it's probably going to be like. And you're going there for that experience. So you're not going there because of their specialness. You're going there for the genre. Now, I want to point out the one on the right, and I'm really going to video myself. The one on the right, you can't see it very well, but that is Nell's Diner. Is that ring a bell for anybody? There was a show, Alice. And that they filmed it in a studio or whatever, but this was the outside that they used. This is in Arizona. I actually went and took that picture myself before coming here from Phoenix, because my brother-in-law is right here. So that one doesn't have any special food or anything we ate at, nothing special, but it knows that they know they got a value proposition. They've got the nostalgia. They've got people that come and they play it up. That's where they're finding a value proposition, something they have to offer, and they're putting that out there. They're not trying to say we got the best apple pie. You know, they've got an idea of the value proposition. So let's tie that into another thing. Since I said they're coming there for the experience, for what they expect. Let's say you made a game in the fantasy genre, the standard Tolkien-esque style fantasy genre. D&D style, you know. Now, people that are stopping and looking at your game are looking at it probably because they enjoy the fantasy genre. They just want, they're okay with just fantasy. Would you agree with that statement? How many fantasy games, if somebody can speak up or not, it doesn't matter, this is your welcome. How many different lores of worlds for a fantasy game or story or whatever have you heard? Oh, this is one. How many different ones have you heard? If you're into fantasy stuff. Too many. Do you care anymore?
Is that a trick question?
It's not a trick question. I'm just saying, honestly, does it get to a point where if you look for a fantasy game, it looks cool, and you start looking into it, and they start into their lore, do you care? Are you listening and trying to pick it up? On occasion, maybe.
Yeah, happy now, because essentially there's I like fantasy.
Yeah.
Like, what do you have that won't, like, become blurry with the rest of them?
Yeah.
Like,
That's it.
I'm anticipating the hook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're waiting to see what it is. And a lot of times, you're making a mistake, I think, by touting your lore up front. Because that's not your, with the fantasy game, that may not be your, unless you have an amazing writer, unique, I'm not saying there aren't those out there, but unless you know, and that's the feedback you're getting, oh wow, you had me hooked right there. Launching right into that may not be your strongest value proposition, or your most profitable one, or your most effective one. Because people may not be, just like Reese's Spoon, people may not be coming because of your apple pie that you think is special. They might be coming probably because they like fantasy games. And in fact, if your game doesn't need lore, I might suggest that you kind of just ignore that and gloss over it and say, I got a cool game that's a fantasy game. Look at why the reasons you want to play it, people like my game. Instead of, it's mediocrely written, you know what I mean? Instead of like, because there's sometimes actually, I've even had some where I start to get involved and it turns me off on the game. Where otherwise I would have been interested because it wasn't well written and it wasn't well executed. So just kind of putting that out there. Think about your product in these terms. Start thinking about the reception, what value you're putting out and offering, saying, I think this is a value. And what the perception of that is, and is it really a value? Even if it is a valuable thing, like the thing. My family made us stand out, but it wasn't relatable and connected with people.
So the thing you have may be wonderful, but it may not be the thing that's going to readily connect with people up front. So think about that in your marketing. Don't just haphazardly try and copy what everybody else has done. Think about what you have to offer. And I have to say this, if you can't think of anything, maybe question your faith or question your product. Because you're either going to save yourself a lot of time and money, or you're going to cry for a minute and then make it better. Make it worthwhile. Make it something that has a reason for people. You know, I get into this later. I'm going to say it now anyway because I have to. I heard it from Andy Rowan. I'm not taking credit for it, but he heard it from somebody else because he's that guy. But who besides your mother? Why would anybody besides your own mother want to buy your game? Your mother loves you. You made it, so she loves that game. But why is, or whatever your product is, why would anybody besides your mother want your product? You got to answer that question. And if your great thing is something that other games are doing just as well, okay, you got to dig deeper. You got to dig deeper. All right, so we'll use my game as a case study, and then we'll actually get into some of yours. Oh, it was the next slide. Look at my brain working. And that might be, you know, that might be my mother's age. Maybe you guys, that's a little, your grandma. Anyway, depends on the game. So let's use my game as a case study, and then we'll get into some of your games. So I'm not trying to advertise my game, but I do. It's not produced yet. I don't have the proof of the pudding. I don't have it out there and it's done, and I have I can stand up here with all the clout. No. I'm taking the things I've learned, I'm doing my best with it, and I'm following God, and I'm seeking and trying to be as earnest as I can and as malleable as I can be to His purpose, not just to any suggestion I get, but I want the suggestions, and I want to take those suggestions and say, God, does this work? Is this probably the right idea? And if I get that go ahead, go with it. You know, there's a process here, so I don't just take everything I hear, but I want to hear it all, especially if it's like, hey, I really don't like this. You know, I want to hear it. And if I can't defend it, you know what I mean? So be critical in this time. It's absolutely fun. We're going to look here. So what is Alice mentioning? It's a tabletop role-playing game. So I have fantasy in it because fantasy is a keyword. And the combat is such that it feels like a fantasy game. It is making up spiritual things that aren't exactly the way the Bible would probably. It is sticking close to the Bible and trying to get the right concepts, but I doubt that there are 4 types of angels that are these 4. You know what I mean? The spiritual concepts are correct, but the actual detail thing. So there's fantasy in there, and I can legitimately use that term. So it's got fantasy in it for people that want that feeling. Spiritual warfare, though, it's any time it takes place. Any time in our earth, in our earth. Any time, any culture. Anywhere you want to be, past, future, in China, or in Brooklyn. You know, it doesn't matter. Okay? So, that's what it is. Your characters are Elohim, is what I call them in the game, but angels is the job, straightforward. But your characters are angels that are engaging in spiritual warfare. That's the gist of it. That's what it is. Yeah.
The 4 faces from the Ezekiel vision?
Yeah, Ezekiel, and actually it's repeated in Revelation, but they're split up. They're split up like my guys. Yeah, they're definitely not, very much. Yep. So, and also that image of those found in like Solomon's Temple and lots of other places too. It's deeper in the Bible all throughout if you actually look. But yes, it definitely shows up in Ezekiel. So that's the setting, or that's the part of my game. So let's start looking at aspects of it and say, is that a good value proposition? Is it my okay value proposition? Is this a strong one? You really got to run with it? Is this, whatever it is. So let's start looking at my thought process, and I'm going to take your input. Let's look at the setting. So it's got a fairly unique setting for an RPG. Now I know like Andrew Lowen has Deliverance, it's a board game. Mine, angels are a little more, I like to say mine are a little more ancient Near East focused. His are more Western angel, like Frank Ready focused, right? But it's kind of similar theme though, it's overlapping, we've talked about that. His is a tabletop game, mine's an RPG. So along like Dungeons and Dragons, Exalted, Pathfinder, calendar, all these other kinds of things. It's a unique setting within our communities. It's also a bit of a niche setting. Now, Andrew, calling back to him, demonstrated, I don't know that he's really surveyed people, I don't know how accurate this number is, but he estimates that probably half of the people that backed this project, very successful project, nearly half of the people that backed this project are not Christian. So that says to me that that niche can be worked through. It's not necessarily only niche, but it's going to draw especially that Christians that like role-playing games, hopefully. That would be the hope. So how does this work, the setting? And I told you it could be any time, any culture, you know. How do you think that works? And you can come up and talk here, you can just shout it out, doesn't matter. How do you think that works as a value proposition?
I like it.
Okay?
I find it very attractive because you kind of have a limitless era of possibilities.
Okay. So I took something niche, you're saying, I'm going to paraphrase, correct me if I'm wrong. I took something that is niche and I tried to broaden.
Sure.
Okay, by allowing that various time frames.
I find-
Because for the angels, it really is all the same narrative. Read the Bible. This is all the same narrative from Genesis to Revelation.
Yeah.
So for them, on the spiritual side of things, it's all part of the same story, just a different chapter. So the difference between the French Revolution and the walls of Jericho are very different from the earth perspective, but for these guys, it's not so different. It's just a little bit more progressed. So yeah, go ahead.
I think for me, it's a nice value proposition because I can instantly look at it and say yes or no.
Okay, I like that.
I'm into that or I'm not.
So what we had on that one was he can instantly look at it and say yes or no right up front. He kind of can start making a decision right up front.
Yeah, I think when you have different themes like Western versus Eastern and such, you touch different markets and different demographics.
Yeah.
And I think the core aspect of that you're trying to hit on is relatability for different demographics.
Relatability, yeah. And actually, from a Western perspective, Andrew's is probably a lot more relatable.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, I mean, you know, yeah. But mine might have a broader appeal. Or people that are into more of a, you might compare it to I don't want to do this, I'm not. This is just for sake of category. This is not trying to say it.
He's gonna
His is more, I know, his is more C.S. Lewis relatable versus somebody said, why don't you use his characters to make a role-playing game? And I said, well, the way I've written my thing, it'd be kind of like fitting Middle Earth into Narnia. It wouldn't work. It just doesn't work. And I'm not saying I love Narnia. It's for a different crowd. It's more lighthearted Narnia is. Mine is like deep, gets into some deep biblical, theological, like scriptural facts and stuff. I do that in the lore. I don't do it in your face where you have to, but it's written into it. You know, that's what I mean is Middle Earth's got more of a darker lore too. I'll have, you know what I'm saying, versus a lighthearted, you know. So I'm not trying to say it for anything else other than kind of a rough comparison in that regard. So yeah. Relatability, but go ahead.
Well, in terms of angels versus demons, I don't think anything unique about that. I mean,
No.
So what you're doing to stand out is what it looks like visually, like what we're seeing. And we're seeing angels, not the demons.
Yeah.
Only the angels so far.
Yeah.
So we're basing our decision on if we like what they look like. basically.
Right. Yeah, it's
That's-
true.
That's what you're
And I do have some other art for them, but yeah, that's not going to be the main thing. Our box cover art eventually, these are the weakest versions of these guys. These are the little dudes. And as they get bigger, they gain, or go to different tiers anyway. Strength, they'll gain like up to 3 sets of wings. The figures, actually miniatures, or the standings will actually get taller. Like they actually, because that's a concept we use. The Hebrew word is kabod, which is, which is, like, it's basically, it's the word for glory. We translate glory, but that doesn't work very well in the English. It's often translated that really has, we call it magnitude in my game. It's your spiritual weightiness, the presence that you carry with you. When you're, so they have, the bigger guys have a bigger magnitude. So literally, like, at the next tier up, second heaven, when they have 2 sets of wings, it would take 3 first domain guys. First domain dudes to offset the magnitude of 1 second heaven. Because of that, so they can literally be 2 on 1, and the bigger guys surrounding them. Anyway, outpowered. Yeah.
Just one addition. Once we see visually, if we like, it's interesting, then we may want to know what the lore is. Because
And that's it. I'm not jumping into the lore right up front for that very reason. Exactly. So what we were saying is, you can make it where he's going. You can make a decision really quickly. You know, there's a lot of things there, but I will argue that this, I need to do this to people's attention, but it isn't my strongest value proposition in my estimation. It is a one. And you guys can disagree with it, and I want to hear it if you do, because I might be wrong. Go ahead.
So, because you were saying that one of the values that you're bringing is that it can take place in any time or any culture.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if this visual should incorporate a planet in it so that you can tell,
Right.
oh, these angels can be at different points.
We've got the lore. Okay, I like that. We've got, if we go back,
Yeah, it was on your first icon.
Yeah, it's on for, you see the big one in there. We do have a world in there. What I want to do eventually, when we're just, I just got the Minotaur dude. I just got him the Ministering Spirit done in time to get for this conference. Barely. So what I want to do is also have some art with good and bad guys, individually or together. Like, I mean, I may pick like, I gotta be too. You gotta be careful. So like, let's say if I did World War II, let's pick like or like, you know, I want to make it more relatable than like Civil War, because that'd be very, you know, American. So let's say World War II, and you've got like a Japanese soldier or medic, and there's, I don't know, I gotta make sure somebody that would actually be fighting on that front, so I don't know if the Brits were, but, you know, an allied soldier that's wounded, and you've got him like standing there getting ready to treat their enemies in the battlefield. He's getting ready to treat that person, and there's a ministering spirit involved in that whole thing, kind of guiding him or whatever else in the back. He doesn't know he's there. You know, but then we also, on the other hand, have something in ancient Rome, and then we have and it show these guys, you know, taking place in the different cultures, interacting and being involved in the different cultures to kind of help sell that idea. That is something we're going to definitely do and work on. Because that is something, how do you sell that idea? You're right. It's a good point. All right. Anybody else on that before we move on the setting? Yeah.
For me, I think like the value proposition was kind of what you're talking about with the different tiers and stuff. Maybe that's just because I've watched so much anime, like Dragon Ball Z and stuff, you know?
It kind of is like that.
Like, you know, it's that kind of thing. Like, man, this guy, like, he can get stronger, or you know, you get like you mentioned that magnitude. One of the questions I think with that is that comes with it is this idea of like, you do have these tiers, you do have these things, but you don't want to show all of it. You want to show that that's there.
Yeah.
But you don't want to be like, if you show it all, then that value is gone. Like, part of the value is the mystery. How do you handle those kind of things, you know?
Here's my thought, and I'm open, because this stuff hasn't been produced yet, okay? I'm open on this. My thought is, these are the guys these are unique actual characters. They're not ones that people would use as their own character. Like, they're actually just pre-made that'll be in the starter kit that you can learn while you're learning it. And then you take the advances that they get, or the honor that, it's like experience, the honor they gain and apply it to your own character when you make your own character and you feel comfortable with it. So you're not wasting your time just playing these guys. But they're going to be the low-level guys in the starter box. On the box art or some cover art, I'm thinking of having like not the fourth tier, but the third tier. And they're all going to be like these more glorified versions in the cover to show that they can be better. And they're going to be fighting something that even the 3 or 4 of these really awesome guys are intimidated by, and just kind of a little hesitant about, cautious about. And then I know it sounds ambitious, it is ambitious. I have a colorist who also knows, pencilers, Marvel credentials, so he sent me his portfolio, like, I read that. Anyway, he really, really wants to work on a comic if I make a comic. I want to have at least a 1-issue comic that comes along with the starter pack too. And in that, they'll be the second level. So I wanted to promote that they can be, but you're starting with the guys here to get your appetite, like, oh, I want to be like that. Oh, I see they can be like this. That's what I'm hoping to do. I don't know if that'll work. I don't know if it's a bad idea, so that's what I'm thinking. It's cool. Okay. All right. Yes, but it does. Yes. So it's not necessarily mystery as much as you're saying, but kind of, because you don't know what all they're like at that level, and you're curious about it. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I would, just coming from a little bit of an advertising background, there was a huge press when I was doing that stuff about call to actions. Like you picking a phrase or something, a topic that kind of sets the atmosphere of what the game is, whether it's a statement or something, you know, like for the border to talk about. Right. That's like a call to action. Like when I first came in and I saw your big banner, you know, my wife read the fantasy part of the description. And I was like, that's cool, but I didn't really know what your world was.
Okay, yeah.
Or what I was being drawn into by the imagery.
We have another that we use, and I've gotten mixed reports on it. We say defend humanity and defeat evil.
Now,
I mean,
yeah,
we do that.
Yeah, I was just curious if that
But it resonates with some and doesn't with others. So
Right,
it's kind of like playing
right.
around.
I guess what it is in the question is that if you used call to actions like you had on your card with your superhero, it's you find that to be effective to kind of like use that repeatedly to kind of draw people in. I mean, is it?
You say, I'm sorry, I got distracted about 5 minutes.
No, you're fine. Do you find that call to actions affected positively or negatively in you?
I haven't played around. I know that I hear it a lot. I haven't had to push it too much. So I'm not honestly actively able to speak on call to action. I know it's a good idea. I know it's a good idea to have call to action. Actually, it seems to be working well enough on my current landing page. It's not developed. It says, join me in armies, you know, or something like that. You know, I do try to put it into play, but I don't have enough to speak honestly.
Or even like your real estate stuff.
Yeah, well, the real estate stuff, I mean, again, at this point, we're working on referrals, so I don't need my ads to be effective, because I'm not making ads. I'm just sending out people, reminding them I exist, telling them I care about them, reminding them that they care about me. Not saying that, but when they do. And so when they're reminded of me, they're reminded of that. And, you know, or they open up a card from me or whatever. Hey, you remembered who remembers your birthday besides your mom when you're an adult, you know? When you're 50, you know, or whatever. No, but I do, and I give you something, you know? Like, because you let me know you care about my business, and I care about you, too. Thank you. You know? So, I mean, I don't have to deal with that in the ads, really. So, that's a good place to be. You don't want to get lazy about it, you know, but yeah.
Got a question. From the way you described it, it sounds like it either has a very epic narrative flow through history or there's time travel involved.
Okay, yes, that's a good question that comes up a lot. We actually have a little bit of suspension of disbelief on that. So we want the freedom so we don't go with time travel. Some people want to go to no time travel, but what happens is this person that wants to run the game for now, and host it, as our GM term is host. This person wants to host a series of missions or a one-off, and it's in, Dominican Republic in the 1990s. I have an actual campaign like that. But anyway, it's like right near Haiti. And then this person says, oh, I got this great idea. And it's like Mount Sinai or in the Exodus or something. We just, you know what, these are eternal beings. The story isn't about them. The story is about what's going on in the natural realm and their involvement with that. So it doesn't really matter if they were rank 2 up here, or rank 7 up here, and then they went up a couple, and now they're back with Moses in the rank 12. It doesn't matter for the narrative, so we just kind of let that go for the sake of enjoyment, and not forcing, well, no, the last mission you did was 312 AD Rome, so you can't go back beyond that, It just, have fun. It's storytelling.
So do people play as a specific avatar character?
Yes, you have your own character.
Whatever module they want to play it.
Yeah, okay, yeah, usually yes. In the game, actually, without getting into too much in the game, but yeah, the people, I was awfully happy to talk about there, with this talk, But long story short, it's made for vast levels and multiple characters. And there are even situations, if you do it and want to engage in the depth of it, you can have a team of your own characters, in the same game. Now, you wouldn't do that when you have a lot of other players, that is nice of them. But, yeah. I mean, yes, there are so many varieties of play, but that gets into it. That is the next thing. Let's just go there real quick. So I have a lot of one-of-a-kind systems, things that I do differently than other role-playing games. They're related in some way, but they're different. And so with that, though, and how do you think that those kind of things, I know you don't know anything about them, but let's say it's 7d12. Let me give that example. Every roll in the game is based on 7 12-sided dice. You roll 7 dice, and you interpret the result. You can tweak the results.
You can edit based on your skills for results. There's a lot of neat things that people really love when they try it. And it actually takes up the most time in the game. And so I said, hey, I thought about several times, I know the game takes a while, so we get, no! Everybody, don't get rid of that, that's my favorite part. Don't do that, yeah, it's gotta stay. So it's there. But do you think those kind of things, and you can ask questions, but do you think those kind of things, how do you think they work as far as value proposition?
I think that's based on the individual. Some
It
people
is.
shy away from heavy dice. Some people just want the strategic card, alternating systems.
Some people don't want to learn a new system.
Yeah, some people just want, hey, can I just roll a d20 and just be happy with it?
Yes.
So, me personally, I really love the blend of dice and card strategy. Yeah, I think that's taken. I think, honestly, I really don't control that because it really.
Yeah, you can't really, it's kind of subjective, you can't really control it. Go ahead.
Yeah, totally agree with what you just said, because specifically with tabletop role-playing games, people play for any number of different reasons, and you can't quite predict what it's going to be when they go into it.
Yes, and that's something I actually try to address in the next session. But yes, that's correct. And so the other thing is, the people that love my mechanics, you don't love it just having heard. You might be interested a little bit, curious, but you don't love it. You've never tried it. The people that love the people that did it. When I'm advertising to you and trying to get your attention, trying to sell you and trying it, this is not my best value proposition. Even if it may be the best part of our game. I actually had permission to go over a little bit because we started late. So thank you. I'm going to wrap it up. But let's see. So next thing then, let's jump ahead. We have an extensive app. It's going to be an app that functions on mobile for the players, and and it can probably it's going to be more like web browser based for the person running the game, because they're going to need to do more things. At least for when they're planning the game, preparing it, it's going to have to be browser based on the desktop, PC, laptop, whatever. But anyway, but otherwise they can, we got mobile, we've got desktop, and what it does, well here, off the bat, without me telling you what it does, how does that sound valuable already? Is that just kind of meh? Is that like, tell me more, what are we feeling here? Meh?
It's interesting, but I don't think it would bring people in.
Okay.
I like
For
it.
me, I like it because I'm like, oh, okay, I can take this with me. This is not something that is just, I just have to be at its table for.
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
move around with it.
And you can still use manipulative, it doesn't run the game, it doesn't move everything around. It's not a virtual tabletop, at least not at this point.
I only play tabletop games if they have a digital component because I'm really interested in component of too.
Okay,
Like the modernization of those elements.
okay. Now let me go to the next, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it's cool because it removes a lot of complexity.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of just streamline things to make it easier to onboard people.
Yeah, and that's actually what I'm going to hit, that you were just saying, go ahead.
It cuts down math for me, and I like that.
Yes, very much. What it does, this app is intended to cater to the person, the host, the person running the game, cuts down the prep time, expands what they actually have available to them. You don't just have a bestiary monster manual that you flip through with these set, cut in stone people that if you wanted something unique, you got to tweak it. I think right now, the party working on the app right now is touch of a button, you just generated an encounter with however many people, bad guys or whatever, and it would generate NPCs, whatever, that are of what these random strengths with random specs and random everything, things that make sense how a player would choose it, but they're unique. And every encounter, unless you save that guy for later use, is, hey, that guy, I want him to come back there. But otherwise, or I like everything about it with this one thing, let me tweak these couple things on the character. But otherwise, yeah, I don't care. Just give me a back, right? But they're unique and they're different. It's not like, hey, that thug, I fought that thug 50 times in various incarnations. I know exactly what his stats are. He's a low-level thug. It's like, no, this Power 7 warrior that you're going up against, the last one was a dual wielder with these type of maneuvers that relate to that, and this one is a sword and shield user, and he's got a different set of abilities, and he's keyed on swiftness and resolve, strength of will, where the other guy has might and endurance as his primaries, and so his stats are going to be different, and all these other things. It's going to be a completely, and their role play stats are different, because I didn't have to sit there and make that. So I'm catering to them in so many ways. The gameplay, it will take you through handling the math. Take care of that added complexity. There's going to be a choose for me button. So if you're the kind of person that wants, I'll use my wife as an example. I exaggerate her. She actually gets into it. But if she's the person, I just want to roll dice and tell me how much damage I can do. That's all I want to do. And then I'm like, I want to micromanage all these little things that I can micromanage to get the best possible result. And so I can do that. And I can do it quicker. They don't have to track everything. They don't even know all the math. And then she can just get those couple choices and choose for me. And it will, according to okay enough choices that are pre-programmed in, pre-guided, it'll do it, So then there we go. You've got, sorry, just right there. So you've got that two different people with enjoy two different styles of games, have the ability to play the same game at the same time the way that they want to play it. And I've had the people that surprised me, I thought it was just catering to GMs. The people that really surprised me are players that are interested. I really have wanted to get into video games or RPGs. I'm like, and I find out they're intimidated by the hundreds of pages rule books. They don't need to know anything. Yeah, guides you through character creation, guides you through combat, tells them what their options are. It makes it accessible to those people. They're really excited about it. Or GMs that have to run the game for everybody. You were doing that last night, having to guide us through all of our choices every time. You don't have to do that. You can just focus on, yeah, exactly. Anyway, so that, knowing all those things, if I can communicate that effectively, does that add to the value proposition?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that's the thing. I gotta figure out how to effectively communicate that in a short time. So I wanted to get to your products. I wanted to actually have a little bit of time. I know we started late. It's 2 o'clock now. I'd be happy to talk through. I wanted to have more of a workshop time. Like I said, we started about 10 minutes late. So, I don't know how you want to handle it. They're telling me to cut. So.
All right.
I hope there's nothing else. I'll be happy to talk through this stuff with any of you not going to master at it, but just help you think. These are conversations that can go on with each of your products. What I want you to do is look at these things, the types of things that we've just talked about, and be open and honest with yourself about your own product, and have somebody else work with you too and say, this may be a great feature, but it may not be best in advertising. That's the thing. So, yeah. All right.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Definitely.